This morning is going to be a little different kind of experience during the sermon time, the message time. It's going to be more of an announcement, and that announcement, which is going to take 15 or so minutes to talk through, is actually already in your bulletins. So if you are interested in kind of following along, there's going to be some notes and stuff on the screen, but pretty much everything I'm going to say this morning is written in there so that you can take it home. It's going to be a lot, so you can kind of digest it. I've been in ministry for almost 30 years, I guess it's been now, and as I progressed and grew, I came into a practice, and it has been my practice as a pastor for quite a long time to reflect on what I feel God might be leading me to pursue biblically on behalf of the congregation in the next year. That's kind of how I talk about it. What am I called to pursue biblically and theologically and thematically on behalf of the congregation in the next year? And that practice typically begins, mid-year sometime of the previous year. In this case, I think I started this process in May or June and began to reflect and to pray. And through personal study and reflection and prayer and conversation with leaders in the congregation, it ends up being a plan, a vision framework for the next year. So all of this discernment ends up being, of course, a direction for us of discipleship that will lead me and, as a result, lead you in the coming year. And then, at the end of that year, which is 2025, I share an outline and a syllabus with the congregation, which you have now in your bulletin, and I'll be talking about it, and you'll be seeing it up here on the screen. And this provides the congregation the opportunity and all the ministry teams and groups within the congregation to align, as they choose to do, with the biblical themes that I will be pursuing on our behalf in the worship services. So, what follows from now, and also in your bulletin, is the outline and a syllabus that will be our starting point for worship this coming year, for study and also discipleship in 2026. I'm fairly excited about this, so hopefully you will be too. As I've returned to ministry, I returned to ministry after about 13 years of not being in full-time ministry here in this congregation. And as I've returned to ministry, I have been asking my colleagues, the various pastors that I'm meeting along the way, other folks that I know that are theologically minded, really interested in the church and what's going on with God in the world. I've been asking them a simple question. Where is the movement of God these days? And it's been a surprising experience because most of them say, I have no idea. And my response is, oh, well, that's kind of scary. Because I believe that there is a movement of God happening. And the reason is because I believe there's always a movement of God happening. We just need to figure out where it is, what it is. And then after we discern that, we need to figure out how to jump on board with that movement. And then we need to figure out how to foster that movement in our worship, in our groups, in our outreach, and in our service. And so those three questions are going to sort of be a guiding questions for us this year. We are going to have a call to action, a primary goal, and that primary goal is going to become a discerning church in the coming age that God is moving us into. Now, if you feel like we are already a discerning church, well, you're going to have a different call to action. Your call to action is going to become more discerning, okay? To double down on your discerning and, by the Spirit, help lead the way for all of us in the church. Here's the plan. First off, there are going to be 8 worship series this year, each with a different theme and different guiding questions. Secondly, you've been experiencing this, but there are going to be links to a podcast version of the message with a transcript, a study guide, and a 5-day devotional, and that's going to be provided by email each week and on our church websites. It's going to come out on Mondays following the Sunday morning service and the message. And these are designed to be used individually or in groups. Now, before I move on, I have been asked by a number of people, not just one person, to share with you and show everyone how to find the podcast. All right? So, how many of you have found the podcast yet? Okay, so they were right. All right, I know this is unusual in church, but pull out your phone. It's not sacrilegious, I promise. There will be no lightning bolts, I assure you. All right, this is a godly endeavor. All right, so pull out your phones. All right, and in each email there's a link to the podcast, but you can't really click that right now. So this QR code is going to take you to the same place. So hold your phone up. And I can see you. Yes, I can, whether or not you're doing this or not. This is probably the only thing I'm going to ever tell you you have to do. Maybe. All right. So open your phone, and then click on that QR code. All right? And that is going to take you to the podcast page. All right? Faith at Work. All right? So click on that. It's going to take you, and hopefully this is working. I did try it out on my phone, but I'm super connected, so of course it's going to work on my phone. But it should be taking you to something that looks like this, all right? And then on the top right, it's not for Terry.
No, they got to get their camera.
Yeah.
You didn't tell them that.
Oh, I thought I did. Did I not say to open your phone and take out and click on your camera?
No.
So, see, group discernment. How it works in the church. Not everybody knows everything or says everything all the time. All right, so use your camera, click on this QR code, and it should take you to something like that. Hopefully it is. And if this doesn't work, we're not going to take way too much time on it, but I'll be in the back. I can help you with it. The top right, there should be some 3 little buttons there, and if you click on that, you can follow the podcast. All right? So if you click on those 3 buttons and say follow, you're going to get notifications when this podcast, and it's just an audio of what I say on Sunday mornings, okay? So click on those 3 buttons, click follow, and now you are following the podcast. Now, this is really, really important, at least to me, and it's helpful in outreach. So just think about it as an outreach endeavor, all right? Go all the way to the bottom, right? And I know it's a little small, but there's a ratings and reviews section. And there's some stars there, all right? Now, I'd like for you to give me 5 stars. Okay? So if you don't mind, rating the podcast at 5 stars right now, all right? All right? And even if you don't ever listen to it because you hear it on Sunday mornings and either you get enough of me or you think it's stupid, rating it 5 stars does something very important in, of course, the internet world. It tells Apple that there's some people who like this, and just think about it. If all of y'all, however many people are here, would rate it at a 5-star rating, that would probably be more 5 stars than many podcasts get after years of being on Apple, okay? It's going to tell Apple that, people like this, and maybe they might want to send it out to other people like us who might like it. So please rate it 5 stars, and then if you don't want to ever listen to it, that's fine. Doesn't matter. But now at least you know where it is, where it lives, okay? Moving on. I do a lot of studying throughout the week in order to prepare the 15-minute message that I share with you on Sunday mornings. And as always, there are a lot of great insights that I learn about, or I read, or I listen to. And all of that gets distilled down typically into one phrase, or at the most one paragraph in my sermon. So there's 5, 8, 10 hours of study that goes into a message, and then distilled into 15 minutes is kind of how it works out. In talking to some people, they said, well, we'd love to talk about some of those things. So if there's enough interest, and I'm saying a minimum of 10 people, and I'm going to explain that in a little bit, if there's interest, what I'm willing to do is to start a class on a background study class group where we would talk about it in a little bit more depth, 45 minutes, an hour, about some of the background stuff that I used to form the sermon, like going in deeper detail about what the Maccabean revolt was about and when that was and why that was. We'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks. Maybe you're interested, but all I'm going to say in the sermon is, a few centuries before Jesus came, there was a Maccabean revolt, and then you're like, well, what's that? So if there's a minimum of 10 people, I can start a group. Now, why 10 people? And this goes for the next thing that I'm going to say as well. It's not because I feel like unless there's enough interest, I'm going to take my time to do a class. That's not the reason. The reason is because if there's that much interest or more, I cannot manage that individually and personally, okay? So during my week, while I'm doing study, I've already done the study. During my week, if I say something on Sunday and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to hear a little bit more about the Maccabean revolt, you show up in my office, you say, hey, Harry, tell me a little bit more about where you got this idea about the Maccabean revolt. Let's talk about it for 20, 30 minutes, or let's go out for coffee, or you call me and say, hey, let's go out for lunch. Well, 5, 6, 7 people a week, I can manage that. I love to eat. I love to drink coffee. I love to get out of here. And I love people to come to my office and talk about God and theology and those kinds of things. But if 20 people do that during a week, I'm just not going to be able to manage that, with the time that I have. But if 6 or 8 of you do, that's cool. That's fine. So if it's 10 or more, we'll start a class. If it's 10 or less and you want to talk, just come by. I'll talk to you about these things. Make sense? Okay. Don't quite know how we're going to figure out whether there's 10 or more of you for a background study, but we'll work on that as we go along. And so we'll either do this by Zoom or in person or whatever. 3, for each series, one book is going to be suggested for further reading. And this is for all 8 of the series for the entire year. So theoretically, we're going to read 8 books at least together for the next year. Okay? And there will also be supplemental books, resources that go along with that if you want to read them, you'll be able to do. So I'm going to be providing information, links to books that go along with each series, things that I'm going to be reading, things that you can be reading, okay? And then that's going to be shared in more detail, kind of like the example that is in your bulletin. And again, if there's enough interest, minimum of 10 folks, in talking about the primary book, we can start a book study, okay, on this and have conversations about that. There's not that many people who want to do it. Just stop by. We'll talk about the book, all right? Each ministry-focused team is going to be encouraged to create one activity, just so you know, one creative contribution for each of the series to create better alignment with these themes, deeper personal applications of these biblical themes, and just a general community feel about what is going on in church. And of course, I'm available to talk to any of the ministry-focused teams that would like to talk about this and brainstorm, okay? So now you know, and our board chairs heard it. So no excuses there. If you don't want me to talk about it, that's fine. But if you do, I am available. The board is going to be talking about, we're going to be having a board retreat in January. Can you remind me of the date?
Saturday. It's 10.
It's the 10th.
Yeah, there's one Saturday in January, and that's when we're meeting.
The 10th.
10th, thank you.
9 to 3.
10th, 9 to 3. The board is going to be meeting, and we're going to be talking about the whole year. We're going to be talking in part about each of the series. So everybody's going to have an opportunity to think about that. So, what's the first series? All right, got a few more minutes. All right. This is what's starting on January 4th. I'm very excited about this. I hope that either you will be after I talk a little bit about it now, or at least when we're involved in it, you'll be excited about it. It is going to be a historical study, and I know some of you don't like to do that kind of thing, but the Bible is a history book, if you didn't know. And we are going to go through a historical study of how God has deconstructed and reconstructed the focus and the practices of God's people in approximately what seems to be 400 and 500 year waves or arcs. It's very interesting. And we're going to begin with the book of Malachi that was written around 400 BCE, and we're going to spend 7 weeks examining God's progression in these waves. The guiding questions are going to be, are we in such a moment and movement of deconstruction and reconstruction of our faith focus and practice? And if yes, then what do we do with that? Primary reading is going to be this book, Phyllis Tickle, The Great Emergence, Emergent Christianity. And in that book, she kind of lays out this idea of how every 400 or 500 years there's a rummage sale of what's going on in the Christian church, and how that changes things and what the church is responding to in those ages. All right? There's going to be 3 secondary readings. All right, and all this is in your thing. I'll send out an email with links if you're interested in buying these books. All the books, I'm trying to make sure that they are Kindle friendly and they're as free as possible. So 2 of the 3, Josephus and the 2 volumes of Gonzalez, which is the history of the Christian church, they, I think, are either free or only cost 99 cents on Kindle. So if you have a Kindle or a phone or something, you can get those resources for free. Both of those 2 I used in seminary. They are very, very helpful sources as we start to think about some of these things. And then Walter Brueggemann, The Prophetic Imagination, an incredible work, and we'll be looking at that, talking about those things. So some really good resources. And then over the next 7 weeks, starting on the 4th, we are going to be looking at these 7 moments in history about every 400 or 500 years where things changed in society, things changed in the geopolitical world, and things changed in the religious faith world. Okay, so Malachi's ache. We're going to be looking at the book of Malachi and what Malachi was saying at that time. We're going to be talking about Jesus' prophetic imagination around the time that Jesus was around, okay? And we'll be looking in a very top-down view of the Gospel of Luke and Matthew. We're going to be talking about the new kingdom. It's not a misspelling. Kingdom, not kingdom, all right? And looking at the book of Acts and what that teaches us about how how the world responded to the prophetic imagination of Jesus when he came, which is going to give us a bit of a template on maybe what we want to do in our age. That's kind of where we're going to be focusing on that. It's a little out of the timeline focus. We're going to be talking about popes and monks in 589 CE, and we're going to be looking at the book of Job, because that was kind of an important book for them, and we need to figure out why was that an important book for them. The Great Schism in 1054. The Gospel of John was really important at that time. Folks were thinking about that and looking at that. The Great Reformation. Most of us are aware of that in 1517, and we're going to be looking at the book of Galatians in that sermon that day. And then the emergence and missional, right, 2006, and we're going to be looking at the book of 1 Peter. So it's going to be a real rapid, fast look at 6 of these 500-year periods and how folks during the book of Acts responded to one of those periods, at least in the Bible. So here's my prayer, all right, for this season, that our next year of becoming a discerning church and finding the movement of God among us will be a life-giving one, all right? I'm not going to do this again, so don't worry about that, for a year. We'll do this again at the end of December next year, all right? So hopefully that doesn't scare you away that day, all right? So welcome to the journey, folks. I think it's going to be an incredible 2026. Thank you.